Hi everyone! Today we are going to be making a granny square bandana. So let's get started. So for this project I am using this regular worsted weight yarn in this teal. It looks bluer than it appears on screen. It's more of a bright teal, and just a matte black because this project is kind of inspired by an anime you may or may not have heard of. And I'm going to be using a 3.5mm crochet hook, or an E-hook in American lingo. So we are going to start by making a mini granny square. I'm left-handed, so apologies in advance to those righties out there. Just flip the video if you feel compelled. We're going to start by making a magic circle. Some people like to do this like under-over loop when they make a magic circle, but I have found that the easy way for me to do it is just to hold it in my dominant hand, and then we are going to go back around and hold it so that our running yarn is on the bottom. Then I take my crochet hook, go up between the middle, pinch the yarn with my dominant hand, wrap it around, and chain as much as you need. We're going to chain 3 to start our granny square, and then yarn over, and we're going to do a double crochet. So we have 1 double crochet and 1 chain 3. We're going to make 1 more double crochet to make a cluster of 3. Okay. Then we're going to chain 2. Then we're going to chain 2 and do another cluster of 3 double crochet. We are going to continue this pattern on around until we have 4 clusters of 3 double crochet. And then once we get all the way back around, we have 4 clusters. We're going to tuck our tail through our magic circle and pull it until it's tight. And so we're going to end up doing 1 more round. And what I like to do when I connect my yarn is I'm going to go, you can see that first chain 3 that we made, so 1, 2, 3. I'm going to go through the second chain. So I'm just going to go through the second chain and slip stitch. We're going to chain 3 again and yarn over. We're going to do DC in this corner hole over here. Without chaining, we're going to yarn over again, go through this other corner hole. And do another cluster of 3 DC. Once we're in that corner, we'll chain 2, yarn over, do another cluster of the 3 DC, and we're just going to continue that around until we get back to the beginning. Alright, and then when we get back around, we're going to chain 2 again, and this time instead of going through the second chain, we're going to go through both loops in the third chain. I can find it. And we're just going to slip stitch, and then slip again, and then we're going to cut our yarn and pull it through to fasten it off. Just pull that slip stitch tight to lock it down. And that is going to be completed one granny square. So just weave your ends throughout it to just time right off and trim them. And that will be 1 out of 6 that we will complete. So we're going to make 4 total out of one color and 2 out of our second color of these 2-row granny squares. And then we are going to make a little corner piece out of our secondary color. So I will show you how to do that. We're going to make 4 of those. So to make our little corner piece, we're going to make another magic circle. Going to chain 3 again. Make a cluster of 3 DC, including the chain. Chain 2. Do another 3 DC cluster. And then instead of making another 2 DC clusters, we are actually going to chain 3 off of this DC, turn our work, and in the first DC stitch right here, we're going to act as if it's a new row and make an additional 2 DC. And about this time I like to tug on my tail yarn just a little bit, just to tighten it up a little bit. We'll yarn over. We're going to go into the top chain hole, do another 3 DC cluster, chain 2, another 3 DC cluster in that same hole, and then yarn over. And because we chained 3, there should be a little bit bigger of a gap, so we're going to go right in that gap of that last cluster and do another 3 DC cluster. Once we get to the end of that, we're going to yarn over and make a chain, cut our yarn, and then pull it through and tighten it to lock it down. We'll pull that middle tail yarn, and this is what you should be left with. It's like a half of a square, and that's going to be our bottom pieces. So once again, after we fasten it off, just weave it through. With these bottom pieces, I do like to weave it around the center part and then trim it really close to the yarn, that way it doesn't show through when we get to the last part where we're finishing off everything. So weave that through, finish it off. We are going to make 4 of these little corner pieces out of our secondary color. Alright, so once we have all of these done, this is how we're going to lay it out to get stitched together. And so what I like to do is, you can use whichever color yarn you want to attach them to each other. I'm going to go with black because it'll just hide easier. So what you're going to do is, we're going to start at the top. We're going to attach this row and this corner piece first, and then go back and attach this row and this corner piece. And that's going to save us a whole lot of time with attaching everything together. So I'm going to make a slip stitch in my yarn, and then I'm going to start up here. I know that I crochet left to right, so I'm going to do my black in front, so when we open it up, it'll be that corner piece up top. So I'm going to take my yarn, and I'm going to find the chain in the corner hole, and I'm going to go through the first chain. I'm going to go through the top stitch only. So it's going to be like we're doing a back stitch only slip stitch in both of these. So the yarn closest to me on the black, and the yarn farthest from me on the green. And I'll show you why I do this when I get to the end of this row. So we're just going to yarn over and slip stitch. So for every other stitch in this row, we're going to do the exact same thing. Yarn closest to me in the black, yarn farthest from me in the green. Yarn over and slip stitch. And then when we get to those clusters, Do the exact same thing. Yarn closest to me in the black, yarn farthest from me in the green, and slip stitch. And we're just going to do that through the rest of this little granny square. When we get to the end, I'm going to do the same thing in the hole. I'm going to go through the chains the same way and go through the second chain as well. And just slip stitch through that. And so when we get to the end, you can see that because we've only done the back loops only, it leaves a nice little straight line against the seam, and I really like how that looks. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to connect these two pieces, these guys. And so we're just going to flip it over. Good. And this time we're going to make sure that the green is facing us. Without fastening off, I'm going to stick my hook through yarn closest to me on the green in that first chain, and yarn farthest from me on the black. I'm going to slip stitch, and I'm just going to hold these tight together just so that they are like secure and tight. And yarn farthest from me on the black. We're going to do that exact same thing all the way down. Once we get to the end of that block, we're going to do the exact same thing with these two pieces right here. So I'm going to flip this square over, and it might look smaller, but I swear it's going to fit. And we're going to make sure the black is facing us this time. We're just going to do the same exact thing. So yarn closest to me on the black, yarn farthest to me in the green, hold it tight against that other block, and slip stitch. And we're just going to go down the row. And I haven't got to, this is where we fastened off on that green square. If you get to this part, you're going to do the first single crochet like normal, and then the second one is going to go through the back part of this slip stitch. So, and honestly, I'm a big proponent of just do what feels right. If it looks good, then great. It does not have to go through exactly where it says to go through, you know? Okay, we're just going to keep going right on down. And then at the end, where there was no like chain 2, I'm going to go through the top chain of that last single crochet. I'm going to go through the last green DC cluster and go right back through that chain, go into the first one, go into the first chain, go back through that chain, go through the second chain in the green. And that's just going to lock it all together. Told you it would fit. Okay, and now to add this other green piece, let me lay it out so you can see. So this is what we're looking at so far. Let me scoot these guys down. And then this piece is going to go right here. So what I'm going to do is flip it over how it's going to appear. We're going to flip back up so that the black is next to us. And go right back into that loop. Tighten it up. And so in the second chain, we're going to grab this top DC chain and go back through that second chain. Grab that top DC loop again, go through the first DC cluster on the side of the green, and then continue on like we've been doing, front loop, back loop, with the rest of your square. At the end, we're going to go through both of the corners like we have been, and then we're going to yarn over, pull through like a chain, and cut our yarn, because that's going to be the end of this row. So you can see when we flip it over and spread it out that this is already more than half of what we have got to put together. So now all we have to do is add these 3 pieces. And so how we're going to do that is we're going to flip over this top part, like I said, depending on which way you crochet, I do left to right. I'm going to keep this green up next to me. We'll make another slip stitch in our yarn. And then we're going to do the exact same thing until we get to that new piece, and I'll show you what to do then. That might seem a little familiar. Alright, so when we get to the seam in the middle, we are going to find where we went through that first loop. So you should be able to pull up both colors of yarn. We'll slip stitch through it, and then we're going to hop over that center seam and do the same thing on the other side. So find those chained yarns and do a slip stitch. Just go right over the top, and you'll just keep right on going. When we get to our next block, we are going to add these two guys right here. I'm going to flip this over and then flip the green up to face me, and we're just going to keep right on going. At the end, we're going to do what we did last time, so just go through that last DC chain, pull through our last DC in the green, go through the green, go through that same spot, pull through, go through our second chain in green, same spot, pull through. And then we are going to add our last little triangle. So we're just going to flip that over, make sure it lines up, and keep right on going. So go through last chain in DC, first chain in the black, pull through, first DC chain, go through the same DC, or the same DC in the black, and then just keep right on going. And then when we get to the end, we're going to do the same thing again. Go through the first chain in both, go through the last chain in both, do a chain, trim your yarn, and pull through to tighten it up. So now what we should see is all the blocks are attached now. So now what you should see is that all of these blocks are attached in one way or another. So these guys are all attached, but now we need to attach these guys. So what we're going to do is pick a side, flip it up, and we're going to start to go around the edge on that. So we'll do the same exact thing. And we're going to do the same thing until we get to this corner of the green. Corner, we're going to do a similar thing to what we've been doing at our corners with the DC clusters instead of the chains. And so we're actually going to, don't fasten on if yet at this corner, because we're going to flip this guy over. We're going to flip this guy over as well and continue all in one big go. So at the corner, what I'm going to do is go through my first chain and go back into that top single crochet in the last black loop, and go through the second chain and flip, oh my gosh, let me lay it down, flip this corner that's not connected over, and we're going to go through the top SC in this black loop over here, and slip stitch like you keep going. And then when we get to the very end, again, we're just going to make sure we go through both of those chains in that corner hole. this is not a triangle piece. We'll chain again, cut our yarn, pull through and tighten it to fasten it off. And so with that, we are going to have a completed big triangle bandana. So what I'm going to do now is just go around and weave in my loose ends and trim them, and then I will meet you back here to go over how to finish off the edge and add our ties to tie it on your head. Alright, so once I have all of my ends fastened off and tucked in, we are going to begin the round of us making the straps, the finishing, and the edging all in one. So I'm a very big proponent of just get it done, just do it and get it done. And so anytime I can save time like that, I like to. We're gonna make another slip stitch, and we're gonna start on one of our sides. If you're right-handed, you'll probably start on this side. So I'm gonna go into the gap where the chain 3 is and make a single crochet, and then we are going to chain 42. Okay, now that we have 42, we are going to do a bobble stitch. And so we are going to yarn over. In the second chain from our hook, we're going to insert, drop a loop, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, insert through that same loop, drop a loop, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops on your hook. We're going to go in through that same chain, yarn over, and do a slip stitch. And that's just going to make like a little pom-pom on the end of our chain. Through all the subsequent chains, we are going to slip stitch. So just start, slip stitch, and you're going to do this all the way back up to the triangle. Okay, and so when you get back to the bottom, we're going to do a single crochet row all the way across here, and that's going to even out these like bumpy edges on the end. So it's not going to be clear cut like places to crochet like normal, but what I like to do is just find a spot, a hole, and just start single crocheting. You don't want them to be too far apart. You don't want them to be too close together. Just try to space it out as best you can. And just do what feels right. It blends in well because this yarn is black, so you're not like edging in another color. If you were doing that, I would suggest like doing it in the back loops. That way you get that clean line like we have on most of these guys. When you get to the green part, I'm just going to go through this middle stitch as well. Well, you can see it like right there. And that's just going to kind of clean this bit up, go through this chain as well. It'll start to even it out. And just keep going. Once we get over to this side, we're going to do a last single crochet in that first chain that we made, and then we're going to, well, let me show you what it looks like. And it still looks a little uneven, but I promise you when it's like tied to your head, it's going to be stretched tight, and no one's going to notice. If they do notice, they'll think it's intentional. No one's going to care. So now we're going to make our second strap. So we're going to do the same exact thing, chain 42, do our little bobble stitch, and then slip stitch back down. So when we get back to the bottom of this strap, we are going to start making our edging. And so for this particular bandana, I have liked doing a bobble stitch edging or polka dot edging, and I just think it looks nice. I have it on my list to make just a regular granny square bandana video in the future, and there I'll go over at least 3 different types of edging, more if I decide to make more, but 3 is what I have right now. But for this one we're going to do a bobble stitch edging, and so it just adds like a nice little edge of fringe and closes off all of our seams and just makes the edge look really nice and finished. So to do this, we're going to chain 4. Whoa. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to do the same thing we did at the bottom of the strap. We're going to make a little like bobble. So we're going to yarn over, go into the second chain from hook, yarn over again, pull up a loop, go through 2 loops, yarn over, go back through that same chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through 2 loops, yarn over, go through all 3 loops on your hook. Then we're going to go back through that same chain, yarn over, and slip stitch. Then we're going to chain 2, and since we started on this end, we're going to go into the chain that is on top of the 3rd DC. So our 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and we're going to slip stitch it closed. And so it's just going to make a nice little cute triangle. And so let's do that one more time. So chain 4. We're going to do a bobble of 2. So yarn over, go through the 2nd chain on your hook, yarn over, bring up a loop, yarn over, go through 2, yarn over, go through that same chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through 2, yarn over, go through all 3 loops on your hook, go back into that chain, yarn over, and slip stitch. Chain 2, and then we're going to slip stitch through the next 3rd DC chain. And so this time where we're switching colors to green, we're going to go, instead of the last chain in the loop, we're going to go into the 1st chain, and we're going to do a back loop only, so it keeps that nice green edging. It doesn't matter when we do it on the black. And then we're going to keep going like normal. And when we get to the end of that first one, we're just going to go into the last DC of that 1st cluster. And that's just going to get us back on going through the 3rd one. So on this 1st cluster of DC, you should have 1 in the front one and 1 in the back one, and then after that, just 1 in the back one. So, and then you'll continue that till we get to this end, and I'll show you what we're going to do when we get there. When you get to this corner, you're going to go, like you have been, through this last double crochet hook, and you're going to keep going like you would. So chain 4, do your bobble, and you're going to go through the 1st double crochet chain at the top, back loop only, and that's going to give you a cute little point. And then you're going to just keep doing the same exact thing you've been doing down this side on this other side. Alrighty, so once we have made our edging stitch all the way back along this last side, I have made my final bobble, chain 2, and you can see where we've started this last row. I'm just going to go into the single crochet next to it and slip stitch, and then I'm going to go through where we started this journey and single crochet, chain to fasten it off. We'll cut our yarn and just pull it tight to fasten. And I'm just going to weave in these ends, and that is going to be it for this little guy. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you feel compelled to, please like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you would like to see me do next in the comments, and what's your favorite anime?